Now you, They heard me say it. I said that. If I was on there, I said that.
Turn around, please. You did not.
Shekinah, you stopped them and I said the same. You asked me, do you think I'm happier? That you asked me the question and I answered it. So why would you sit there and say that?
Because I am happy.
But why would you sit there and say that I ain't say that?
Because you didn't.
I think she's happy. Yes, I did.
It wasn't loud and clear.
Tell me. Yeah? Tell me what's going on right there. What's going on?
Atlanta didn't just light up last night. It erupted. The whole city was buzzing like a movie premiere gone wrong. Only this wasn't Hollywood drama. It was real life, raw, emotional, and impossible to look away from. Clifford T.I. Harris, the self-proclaimed king of the South, suddenly found himself trapped in a firestorm that threatened to torch his whole empire. What started as whispers turned into a full-blown explosion when leaked medical records, private messages, and even shaky audio clips started flooding social media. Each drop hit the timeline like gasoline on open flames. Then came the jaw-dropper. Word spread that Shakina Anderson was pregnant, and the alleged father? Not some random mystery dude. The name being thrown around was T.I. himself. The internet went wild overnight. Hashtags like hashtag Shakina pregnant, hashtag DNA for tip, and hashtag justice. For Tiny started trending so fast that even people outside the hip-hop world were tuning in just to see what would happen next. For Tiny, this wasn't just another messy rumor. It was pure heartbreak broadcast for the world to see. After years of standing by her man through every scandal, this hit different. It wasn't gossip anymore. It was betrayal at its rawest form. And fans wanted answers immediately. The biggest shock came when Tiny herself stepped up, tears streaming, voice cracking but burning with anger. Cameras flashed as she looked straight into the chaos and said, "I want a DNA test. I deserve the truth. My family deserves the truth." That one sentence flipped the script completely. Suddenly, it wasn't speculation. It was a real wife demanding proof, live and unfiltered. The clip of Tiny shaking, clutching tissues, crying but refusing to back down spread across every feed imaginable. To women everywhere who'd ever been lied to or left broken, her pain hit home. Her breakdown became a symbol of strength, betrayal, and truth colliding in real time. Tiny wasn't just a reality star or a singer anymore. She became every woman's heartbreak personified. Every tear, every betrayal, every sleepless night from broken promises, she carried it all on camera. The internet couldn't look away, not out of cruelty, but because the pain felt too real. It was raw, unfiltered emotion that hit straight in the chest. Then came the so-called receipts that turned whispers into a full-blown catastrophe. Shakina's alleged medical report leaked online, and one brutal detail flipped the entire story on its head. The conception date lined up exactly with T.I.'s stay at an Atlanta hotel. That one piece of paper felt like a nuclear bomb. One line confirmed what millions had already been whispering, and suddenly, everything stopped cold. The blogs froze. Journalists gasped. Influencers dropped reactions like confetti while fans mourned like they were watching the collapse of a royal family. Tiny, already hanging by a thread, reportedly fainted during a heated family confrontation. Meanwhile, T.Y.'s once active Instagram went ghost mode. No posts, no captions, no stories, just silence. And that silence? It screamed louder than any denial ever could. Fans took it as a sign, like the king of the South had just bowed his head in defeat. But just when everyone thought it couldn't get any worse, boom, a whistleblower stepped into the chaos. Alleged screenshots surfaced showing Shakina messaging a friend, admitting that if the DNA test went public, T.I. would lose everything: his wife, his career, his empire. That leak set the whole scandal on fire again. The internet turned into a battlefield. Some called Shakina a schemer who wrecked a family. Others painted her as a woman trapped in a love triangle she never asked for. But one thing was certain: the Harris empire was falling apart live, and nobody could hit pause. Then came the real showstopper, the courtroom. It looked less like a legal proceeding and more like a red carpet meltdown. Paparazzi packed the steps, fans crowded the streets, and protesters waved signs demanding justice for Tiny. Inside, the tension was so thick it could have shattered glass. The air buzzed with betrayal, power, and the end of what once looked untouchable. Tiny sat at that courtroom table looking shattered but fierce. Tissues in one hand, fire in her eyes. Her face was pale, but her spirit? Unbreakable. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every woman who'd ever been lied to. Moments later, Shakina walked in, surrounded by security, her face caught somewhere between guilt and pride. Then came T.I., the once untouchable king of the South, now looking drained, cornered, and stripped of his throne. When the judge read the words, Tiny Harris versus Clifford Harris and Shekinah Anderson, DNA, and betrayal, the entire courtroom gasped. It wasn't just a legal case, it was history unfolding. A family torn apart under the brightest lights possible. The whispers bouncing off the courtroom walls sounded like thunder. Everyone knew this was no ordinary trial. This was the fall of a dynasty. As the evidence rolled out, the place turned into chaos. Reporters scribbled like their pens were on fire, cameras flashed nonstop, and fans sat frozen like they were watching the season finale of a hit drama. Then came the moment that changed everything. The audio file. A shaky recording blasted through the speakers, and that voice, it sounded exactly like T.I. saying, "Don't worry, Shakina. If this comes out, I'll handle Tiny. Just trust me." The second those words echoed, the courtroom erupted. Gasps filled the air. Reporters jumped to their feet, and Tiny broke down right there, her voice cracking as she screamed, "You destroyed me! You destroyed our family!" Seconds later, she collapsed into her daughter's arms, sobbing so hard the whole room went silent, except for the sound of her pain. Flash after flash from cameras caught the moment that would soon flood every headline on Earth. Tiny, the broken queen of an empire built on loyalty, now betrayed by the very man she helped raise to the throne. Outside, Atlanta exploded. Crowds shouting, "Justice for Tiny!" and "DNA doesn't lie!" Protesters lined the courthouse steps while police fought to hold the barricades. Some fans cried, others screamed, and social media caught fire all over again. News outlets called it the greatest betrayal in hip-hop history, a royal downfall live-streamed for the world to witness. TikTok went absolutely wild, fans crying, yelling, posting reaction videos with mascara running, and captions like, "I can't believe this." The memes hit instantly too. T.I. getting roasted as a fraud, while Tiny was being crowned online as a heroine rising from the ashes. Shakina, though, got torn apart by the internet. Half the world painted her as a cold mastermind. The other half saw her as a broken pawn in a dangerous game she couldn't control. But then came the moment that flipped everything, the DNA results. The courtroom went dead silent as the clerk, hands trembling, ripped open the envelope. Every camera leaned in. Every reporter held their breath. Then came the words that hit like a nuke. Clifford Harris, known publicly as T.I., is the biological father of Shekinah Anderson's child, with 99.9% certainty. That sentence detonated the room. Gasps turned to chaos. Tiny let out a scream that echoed through the hall. "Why, Clifford? Why would you do this to me, to us?" Her daughter cried beside her while Shakina broke down screaming, "I never wanted this!" "He promised me everything." The courtroom turned into pure madness. Tiny, shaking with rage, hurled a water bottle across the aisle, shouting, "You destroyed my life, my children's home. Don't you dare act like you're the victim." The judge slammed the gavel again and again, but the noise drowned everything. Fans inside were crying, yelling, and reporters stampeded to get their footage. It was chaos turned cinematic. Within minutes, Twitter exploded. Hashtags like hashtag the bombshell, hashtag tinybroken, and hashtag cancel T.I. shot to the top worldwide. TV networks dropped regular programming for non-stop coverage. Late-night hosts turned the scandal into punchlines, and hip-hop commentators called it the most humiliating fall of a rap legend ever caught on camera. But the nightmare wasn't done. Just days later, an alleged leaked clip surfaced online. T.I. laughing with his boys before the trial, bragging, "Tiny ain't going nowhere. She can cry, she can sue, but she'll always need me." Shakina? Man, she's just another piece of the puzzle. That video hit the internet like an earthquake. Fans went ballistic, calling him manipulative, arrogant, and heartless, a self-proclaimed king, mocking the very queen who built his throne. Overnight, T.Y.'s empire began to bleed. Endorsements gone, fans turning, and his label dropping a cold corporate statement that made it clear the crown had officially cracked. The statement from T.Y.'s label hit like a death notice. "We are reviewing our relationship with Clifford Harris following recent revelations." That one cold sentence said it all. Within hours, sponsorships vanished, deals were shredded, and longtime associates started cutting ties like they'd never known him. The King of the South suddenly looked like an empire with no throne. Meanwhile, Tiny transformed into the tragic heroine of the entire saga, heartbroken yet unbroken. Her public statement shook the internet to its core. Through tears, she declared, "I never thought I'd see the day my family name would be dragged through this. But I will rise, I will fight, and I will make sure my children know the truth about the man who broke our home." That speech became iconic overnight. Her strength turned her into a global symbol of survival after betrayal. Fans flooded her social media with love, camping outside her Atlanta mansion with posters reading "Queen Tiny Forever" and "Rise from the Ashes." The world rallied behind her like she was the people's champion, strong, graceful, and done being silent. But across town, Shakina's world completely imploded. Hate poured in from every corner, death threats in her DMs, protesters outside her house, and social media comment sections that turned brutal. In a tearful Instagram live, she broke down crying, "I didn't destroy the family. He did. He told me he loved me. He said he'd leave Tiny, and now I'm the one paying the price. I can't even walk outside without being called a monster." Her words hit heavy, but sympathy was hard to find. To the public, she was the villain, the woman who shattered a home, the name that ended a legacy. Whether she was a pawn or a co-conspirator didn't matter anymore. The verdict had already been written online. Then came the final strike, the divorce. Tiny officially filed to end her marriage, demanding full custody of her children, half of T.Y.'s empire, and damages for emotional distress.
You said that.
Let me ask
You
somebody,
said
somebody who know me for real, right? Who really know me.
Man, I'm gonna tell you what you wanna hear.
I think you have.
Do you think I'm like from
Hey, what she got?
I think she's heavy. I think she's heavy.
The video ain't really the issue. The video being posted up on social media is the issue. If someone would have sent her that video privately, she and I would have had one conversation about it, and it would have been over.
The move sent shockwaves through the industry. A love story turned courtroom war. And as the papers were filed, one truth echoed louder than any lyric he'd ever written. The empire Tiny helped build was now hers to reclaim. The leaked court documents were brutal, cold, clinical, and devastating. They described T.I.'s actions as repeated betrayal, public humiliation, and irreparable emotional damage. It was all laid out in black and white for the world to see. Paparazzi caught Tiny walking out of the courthouse, dark sunglasses hiding her swollen eyes, her kids close by her side. That single image went viral. Front-page headlines screaming, "Tiny ends it all. DNA bombshell destroys the Harris family." By nightfall, the once golden Harris empire had turned to dust. T.I. sat alone inside his mansion. Just him, silence, and the echoes of what used to be power. Rumors said he wasn't sleeping, just pacing those marble floors while his phone flooded with death threats and messages from people he used to call friends. Meanwhile, Tiny was being lifted higher than ever. hailed as the queen who survived the storm and walked through fire without burning. But this scandal didn't just fade, it mutated. More leaks, more whispers, more chaos. Reports claimed I had lost over $30 million in sponsorships and contracts. Then came the shocker. Sources said Tiny was secretly working on a tell-all memoir, ready to expose every betrayal, every lie, every hidden chapter the public never saw. And while all this was unfolding, insiders swore Shakina was planning to skip town entirely, disappearing from Atlanta to escape the chaos. The dynasty that once stood for music, fame, and family had crumbled into nothing but shattered dreams and pure bitterness. The world couldn't look away. It was like the most scandalous reality show ever filmed, playing out live in real time. When the dust finally began to settle, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't your average celebrity mess. This was a collapse, a full-blown implosion of a dynasty that once ruled Atlanta's hip-hop throne. T.I., once hailed as the King of the South, now sat isolated, his crown gone, his power stripped, his empire bleeding out. The same streets that used to chant his name were now whispering about his downfall. Friends stopped calling, business partners vanished, and even his day-one allies started keeping their distance. What was left was nothing but an empty house filled with silence, shame, and memories of loyalty long gone. Meanwhile, Tiny's story had evolved. She wasn't just a rapper's wife anymore. She had become the face of survival. The woman who turned heartbreak into power and walked out of the ashes with her head held high. Tiny had become the ultimate symbol of survival. The tragic queen who turned heartbreak into a movement. Everywhere she went, cameras swarmed her. But this time, it wasn't to mock. It was to celebrate. Fans lined the streets holding signs that read, "Warrior Queen, and we stand with Tiny." They cried for her, cheered for her, and treated her like royalty reborn. Her pain had morphed into power, and the world couldn't wait to watch her rise from the ashes even stronger than before. Meanwhile, Shakina's reality flipped into a nightmare. The same internet that once obsessed over her was now tearing her apart. She became one of the most despised names in the culture. Protesters outside her house day and night chanting, "You broke a family!" Her DMs were flooded with death threats and insults so vicious she could barely pick up her phone. In another teary Instagram live, she cried out, "He told me he loved me. He told me he'd leave Tiny, and now I'm the one taking all the hate." But the crowd wasn't buying it. To most people, she wasn't a victim. She was the spark that burned down an empire. Whether that label was fair or not didn't even matter anymore. The damage was done, and her name was permanently stained. Industry whispers claimed she was packing up, ready to leave Atlanta behind for good. Maybe even change her name just to escape the storm chasing her everywhere she went. In one gut-wrenching clip, she confessed, "I can't walk down the street without someone spitting at me or calling me a monster." That was the last the public really heard from her. Slowly but surely, her story faded into silence, leaving nothing but digital ruins in her wake. Tiny, on the other hand, was just getting started. Her next move was cold, calculated, and powerful. The divorce papers? Just the beginning. She wasn't just demanding half of TY's empire and full custody of her kids. She was preparing to go public in a way that would send shockwaves through the industry. Rumors started flying about a tell-all memoir, one that wouldn't just spill details about the affair with Shakina, but expose years of hidden secrets, lies, and infidelities that had been swept under the rug for too long. The world braced itself, because if Tiny really told it all, this wouldn't just end T.I.'s reputation, it could rewrite hip-hop history forever. The buzz around Tiny hit a fever pitch. Fans couldn't wait to hear her side of the story. Every podcast, every talk show, every blog wanted her in the chair, and the second she spoke, her words turned into instant headlines. She wasn't just a scorned wife anymore. She had transformed into a victor, a woman reclaiming her voice after years of silence. The more T.I. tried to stay quiet, the louder her truth echoed across the world. And it worked. Tiny's story began to completely overshadow his. The media flipped the narrative, painting her as the true survivor and him as the villain of his own downfall. Her name was trending for empowerment, while his was trending for embarrassment. Meanwhile, T.I. was facing one of the hardest falls from grace hip-hop had ever seen. Reports confirmed he'd lost over $30 million in contracts, endorsements, and business deals. His label went cold, sponsors backed out, and his streaming numbers tanked overnight as fans turned on him with ruthless speed. The internet branded him a narcissist, a manipulator, a man who had single-handedly destroyed the empire he built, one reckless choice at a time. And that leaked video, the one where he laughed and said, "Tiny ain't going nowhere," kept resurfacing like a ghost haunting him. Every replay was another reminder of how arrogance had flipped into ruin. Every time he tried to lay low, something new dragged him right back into the storm. Another rumor, another leak, another betrayal. His silence, once seen as calculated, now looked like guilt. The mansion that used to symbolize power became his cage, echoing with the buzz of threats and missed calls. His empire was gone, his crown shattered, and T.I. had become a shadow of the king he once was. But what made it even wilder was that this wasn't just some messy breakup. It turned into a full-blown cultural moment. The whole world weighed in. Talk shows debated if this was the biggest betrayal in hip-hop history. Fans went to war online, arguing over whether Tiny should forgive him or walk away forever. But one thing was clear: the divorce papers didn't lie. Tiny had made her choice, and this time, there was no going back. Even other celebrities couldn't stay quiet. Some publicly stood with Tiny, calling her a symbol of strength, while others backed away from the chaos completely, not wanting to get burned by the fallout. The Harris family, once celebrated for their music, their hit reality show, and their picture-perfect love story, had turned into a living cautionary tale. A brutal reminder that no matter how glamorous the empire looks from the outside, it can all collapse if it's built on lies. Tiny's tears became iconic, every drop representing the pain of every betrayed woman watching from afar. Shakina's downfall was its own warning. Being the other woman might feel powerful in the moment, but it never ends well. And T.I.'s collapse? That was the loudest lesson of all, that arrogance and betrayal can destroy even the strongest legacy when the truth finally comes knocking. By the end, even Atlanta felt different. The city that once called T.Y. its king now whispered his name like a curse. His crown was gone, his throne abandoned. What was left behind was nothing but ruins of a dynasty that once defined Southern royalty. Tiny rose from the ashes as the tragic queen who survived betrayal, a woman who turned pain into legend. Shakina disappeared completely, fading into the shadows, paying the ultimate price for her part in the chaos. And T.I.? He remained trapped in silence, surrounded by ghosts of fame, regret, and a fortune turned to dust. The DNA results hadn't just exposed paternity, they had ripped open every hidden truth and left destruction in their wake. As cameras zoomed in on Tiny's tear-streaked face one last time, the message was painfully clear. This wasn't just a scandal, it was betrayal in its rawest form, the kind that leaves scars no one ever fully heals from. Now the question that lingers across every headline, every comment section, every fan debate: can anything be rebuilt from this rubble? Or is the Harris dynasty truly gone for good? Because sometimes, the truth doesn't just set you free. It burns everything around you until there's nothing left to save. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to stay locked in with StarTea channel. Because trust me, this saga isn't over yet, and the next chapter is only getting darker.